Hi, I'm Philip Bloom, and you're listening to the Go Creative Show.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Consoli. I am a director and owner of BC Media Productions, and this is the Go Creative Show, the show dedicated to creative professionals in the video production, filmmaking, television, and music industries. The one and only Philip Bloom joins us today to talk about his career shooting across the world, new cinematic technologies like 360 video, drone videography, and how his work has inspired a generation of filmmakers. The Go Creative Show is supported by our friends at Kessler, making innovative tools for filmmakers. Visit them at KesslerCrane.com. Rule Boston Camera, buy, rent, create at Rule.com. Newsshooter.com, essential news for real-world shooters, Shutterstock.com. Hedge for Mac, the fastest way to back up media, and PremiumBeat.com. Premium, royalty-free music and sound. Well, I have been a fan of Philip Bloom forever. This guy is such an inspiration to me, and I'm sure all of you guys listening as well. He was a guest on the Need Creative podcast back, probably 3.5, 4 years ago now. I can't believe that much time has passed. But this podcast was called Need Creative Podcast, and it was hosted by Paul Antico from Anticipate Media. And back in those days, Philip was a guest on the show. So it's been a long time, but we're very happy to have him back. And we talk about all sorts of cool stuff. Of course, his career, but we also talk about new fun gadgets and gizmos in the filmmaking world, which I love. So we dive deep into all of that, and it's coming up in just a couple minutes. But before we get there, I want to talk about Rule Boston Camera. Rule is the place to go to purchase and rent all of your production equipment. You go to Rule.com, RULE.com, and you see 3 big buttons: buy, rent, and learn. And we're going to talk about the learn button today because this is what is so great about Rule. Teaching people, supporting the filmmaking community. That's what Rule is all about. And they have events every month that are free. They're called Learning Labs. Some of them are called pub nights. It depends on what time of the day these things are, but they're free and they're great. And they have a couple coming up in November that I want to bring to your attention. First, Wednesday, November 16th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's a Boston Avid Users Group meeting, and they're going to do a demo of Boris Effects. And then on Thursday, November 17th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., Demystifying LUTs with Women in Film and Video New England. What are lookup tables? How do they work? How do they work on set? And how are they handled in post-production? There's information there that you need to know, and you can get it for free by going to Rule.com, RULE.com, in registering for the event. Now, if you can't make it to Boston or you're just not available, don't worry, because they post all of their meetings and all of their events on their Vimeo page, which you can also get to at Rule.com. So go over there, check it out, and you'll be happy that you did. And lastly, Hedge for Mac. Hedge is the fastest application for importing and backing up media on OS X. It's simple, but it's very powerful. It's built for video, photo, and audio files because it's optimized for files 100 megabytes or larger, and that's really what we're working with here. It's even faster than the Finder, which is super important. And every file copied by Hedge is cross-verified with the original. So first of all, you get speed, and you get the verification. So you know for sure your stuff is backed up before you hand the card over to your DPs and they wipe them away. You want to make sure this stuff is secure and backed up and verified, and that's what Hedge will do. Now, Hedge has a free version at hedgeformac.com, HEDGE, for Mac, MAC.com. But I strongly encourage you get the paid version because that is how you're going to unlock all of the speed and all of the capabilities is within the paid version. The free you can try out, but the paid is when you really have it for real. Now, if you want a 20% off discount, and why wouldn't you? It's super easy. You go to hedgeformac.com/Go Creative Show and you get the full version, but you get it at a 20% discount. And that's the place to go. hedgeformac.com/Go Creative Show. I use this program every day. I love it, and I know you guys will too. All right, it's time for our spotlight. Philip Bloom. Philip Bloom is a world-renowned filmmaker who has proved to his audience that you can create incredible cinematic images no matter the camera. Some of Philip's most iconic work was created with DSLRs, and as one of the biggest evangelists for their use, his website, philipbloom.net, has become the home for filmmakers who embrace new production technologies. Philip has worked across the world and won countless awards, but most importantly, he's inspired millions of filmmakers to follow their dreams. So I'm here with Philip Bloom, cinematographer, filmmaker, and really a man who needs no introduction, especially for anyone that has been online for the past 6-8 years or so. Philip Bloom, thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Your career has really been an inspiration for so many young filmmakers and just the filmmaking community in general. What was your life like before the Philip Bloom that we know now?
I don't know. I think there may be some misconceptions as to who I am. My life isn't really any different to. Obviously, there are changes. Basically, what happened was I spent 17 years working in a staff job at Sky News, and it was a fantastic place to learn my craft. And I learned so much, and I learned how to tell stories brilliantly and quickly. And in the last few years of it, I was mostly just doing documentaries. And it was one of those, so I just got to the point where I felt like it was time to try something different. Otherwise, I would never leave after doing 17 years there. And I was lucky enough, I suppose you could put it, in the department that I was working for, the documentaries unit, was closed down, which is kind of the push you need. You always need a push on these things. If otherwise, you'll never do anything. And the choice of to stop doing half-an-hour documentaries and long-form features and go back to doing 90-second packages and live broadcasts non-stop was deeply unappealing to me. And so I left. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, back in August. So in that time, I've been freelance. And really, there's kind of like two very different aspects of what I do. One is the one that I get paid for, and one is the one that I don't get paid for, really. And the one I get paid for is I am a director of photography and a director, and that's my main job. And I also have the whole social media and online aspect of it, which, of course, does generate work because people know of me, and so work comes from that. But it's not like not like YouTubers who earn money from putting on videos. That's their career, that's their job. For me, the online videos and everything like that is just a side thing, a thing to keep me creative, a way of sharing and somewhat giving back, really, my experiences. So it's a strange thing. And then the biggest thing is it just takes up all of my time.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Because when I was staff, I had a life. That's the biggest difference, I would say, is in a staff job, you had a roster, you had projects, and you basically let things go at the end of the day, which is nice. And I know that when I come home, I can sit down and I can watch TV, I can relax, but I also always know that I have 7 or 8 edits, which are still ongoing, or projects which I need to plan. So it's kind of a never-ending feeling.
I can imagine. I mean, just putting this show on 3 episodes a month on top of having like a paying job, quote unquote, it's a lot of work. And I think what's refreshing for me is that the stuff on this show is such a departure from what I'm doing in my work life. But for you, it's sort of like you're working and then you're going to talk about it and blog about it and tell the world how you did everything. It must feel like the projects just never end.
Yeah, I mean, there's projects that I work on that I talk about, and then there's projects I work on that I don't talk about because obviously I'm not allowed to. It depends on what the job is. Yeah. And I made this decision to share and to educate, and it's one I certainly don't regret it at all. It's certainly been an interesting thing, but it's first and foremost, I am a filmmaker, and that is what my profession is. And everything else is kind of like this weird sort of like, I don't even know, this sort of like cloud or something that sort of like envelops it. And it's the definition is actually kind of hard at times to separate, it feels like. But I'm always thinking of like, oh, this job, can I be talking about this? Can I share this? And if so, then I will share it. Obviously, anything I'm not doing that's paid or any paid jobs is different, but and then even that's not necessarily the same. I've done loads of paid jobs where they actively encourage me to share as much as possible, and I do very much.
Where did that sort of craving for sharing and teaching come from? Is that always something you just wanted to do?
I was the path that I took to get into the business was starting at the bottom of Sky Television back in its early days before it became this monstrous company, huge, big company. Back when I started, it was tiny. And I learned everything from working there. And I was taught by some incredibly talented people. Some cameramen who took me under their wing, and I went out with them. And before I got my first, I was basically just a general runner for the first 3 years of working at Sky, just doing anything. And I spent every weekend going out with news crews, and I just bugged them. And eventually, when a vacancy came up, and I got a job as an assistant, which is like a sound recordist, working with cameramen. And those cameramen taught me. Some were better than others, obviously. Some wanted to teach you and some didn't. But the ones who did want to teach me, I learned so much from. And I feel so indebted to them. And these days, that sort of path, the ability to get a staff job and work your way up is very rare. A lot of people just try and go for it. And so I just felt that this was my way of kind of doing what those cameramen did to me. They although it was on a much, it was a one-to-one scale with them. To me, I just felt like I should repay that in my own way.
Your blog is getting over 1 million visitors a month, which is absolutely incredible. When did you start realizing that this was more than just a blog site and this was starting to turn into really an industry-changing community?
I don't know, has it? For me, it's just my blog. I have 2 sections. You go to my webpage and you have a choice. It's like the red pill or the blue pill. One for my work section, which is where I'd like you to go to so you can hire me. And then the other one goes to the blog. And it's a completely different section. It is really, if you go to, you'll see it's all sorts of, it's a mishmash of everything, but it's not designed to get me work. It's something else. And it's a funny old thing because I don't necessarily recommend, also the days of blogs and things are kind of, the heyday kind of seems to have gone. People like the immediacy of social media much more than blogs, but I still believe in the value of the blog and my blog, and keeping it quite individual, as opposed to taking it. I could take it down a very much a news way of like, here's the latest piece of gear. Look, check this out. But everybody does that. It's not that. So I really wanted mine to be. There are times when I also talk about new gear, but it's much more focused about trying things and sharing my experiences with them, and dissecting different shoots that I do, showing my experimentations, like my experimentations with 360 video or new drones. It's ideally there just to help people. So when they come to trying it out, they've got this, somebody's done all the mistakes for them, and hopefully they can do things better.
Well, I bought a Sony a7S II because of your experiences with it and sharing about that on the blog. I think your site for a lot of people is just a place to go before you buy anything or before you rent anything, because chances are you've used it and you're going to be honest about your opinion about it. And I think that's what I mean when I say that it's industry changing, because I think you are a resource for where shifts in gear purchases and rentals go, whether you like it or not. I think it's just the reality of it. And I'm glad you mentioned 360 video, because that's something that's it's very important. A lot of clients of mine are very specifically asking about 360 video, and you've had some experiences with it. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on the medium now, since it's starting to become more and more, relevant for people.
Yeah, I love gadgets. I've loved gadgets as much as I could growing up in the 70s and the 80s, when there weren't quite so many gadgets. Yeah. But we had our different types of gadgets. We had our ZX Spectrums, and we had our base, simple computers and our basic games consoles. But I've never stopped loving electronic gadgets and always excited by them. And I didn't really know anything much about 360 cameras. As much as I love gadgets, I don't get into everything. I see some stuff and go, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I will try stuff out. I mean, like 3D is a great example. 3D was everywhere for a while, for about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think I bought maybe 3 sort of consumer style 3D cameras, and they were fun. It was quite nice to have these lenticular screens and see this 3D image as you were shooting. It was like, that's so cool. But then I didn't really like the end result. I don't like the way of watching it. I don't like watching it at the cinema. I don't like watching it on TV. And then I was kind of like, well, as fun gadgety as this was, I'm not really into this. And I've never shot a professional project in 3D. I've been approached back in its really popular days, and it was always a case of, why should this be in 3D? It was because I mostly shoot documentaries. I was approached to do a TV series, Sky, and it was pretty much all talking heads, and they wanted it in 3D. And I was like,
really? That's so weird.
It's going to be very dull. But it didn't really interest me. So I didn't do that. So when 360 is a funny thing, because it's, you confuse VR and 360, and they're quite different things in a way. VR is much more computer generated, and you're actually in it and part of it, and you can move around and do things. Whereas 360 is a much more passive experience in a way, because you have these limitations. A lot of it's to do with the camera. And it's very new. It's very new as far as I'm concerned. We've had GoPro cameras, in these crazy mounts and the workflow from hell, which has really not appealed to me in the slightest. So I haven't touched those. And it's also very expensive to do that.
Yeah.
And it was only when I got shown a consumer 360 camera called a Theta M15 in April last year. And I thought, this is a cool gadget. I like this. It takes photos instantly, back and forth on both cameras, and it's instantly joined up. I'm like, that's fantastic. It looks great. But it was much more about manipulating the image than thinking of it through goggles. I asked, what's the video like? And I was told, terrible. And it was terrible.
Yeah.
And then it brought out another version, which was slightly better in video, but still unusable in that capacity, really. But I still love the stills. And that's when I first started. I got my first VR goggles for a Samsung phone and put some of the stills that I shot on the Theta S through it. And I was like, this is actually really good. Even just stills look really good. And then, but I kind of desperate for a 360 camera that shoots video that is of that quality. I backed stuff on Kickstarter, which didn't appear and still haven't come out. And actually, one I did back eventually came out 2 years later. Because it shows you how long I have been curious about it.
Yeah,
I backed something on Kickstarter, and it turned out to be 2 years ago, and it finally came a year and a half late. And by which point it was hopelessly outdated in its video specs. Only shooting HD, because you need 4K minimum to shoot video in 360.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until the Samsung Gear came out, and around the same time I bought the Kodak 4K SP360, whatever it's called, the dual camera setup, which is quite expensive for 2 cameras, and started seeing that just with these 2 cameras or 2 lenses and simple devices, it is actually possible to get some quite interesting stuff. It's not going to be as good as GoPros, 6 GoPros together, but for simplicity, this is fun. And I started trying to, capture moments, some behind the scenes moments on shoots, which were really cool. I was explaining my lighting setup, and then when I was in some amazing locations, I set it up there, and it's really just got me thinking about how you can use it in telling a story.
Yeah.
I haven't posted anything yet telling a story because I haven't really done anything there, but I'm still in my experiment phase. And I do this a lot. Before I use anything professionally, I experiment with it until I'm kind of like, yeah, this is pretty good. It was the same with drones. I didn't really shoot anything professionally with drones for about 8 months after I first got one. So I like to kind of really get to know things and the limitations and what I can do with it. And I think it's an incredibly exciting additional medium. And that's the key thing, additional medium, not a replacement. It's something separate. And I think there's already some fiction stuff out there and some bits of documentaries and stuff. And if you think about it in the right way, you could create something really fantastic. I mean, you've got to limit it to a point because wearing goggles is tiresome. People don't like to have it on for too long. But I think it's as a storytelling medium, it can be an incredibly powerful tool, because if the quality is good enough on the camera to make it feel like you're not quite there, but almost there, and if you've got some strong direction as to where the viewer needs to look, it can be a terrific device. It really can.
Do you have some thoughts of maybe how you might incorporate 360 into a story moving forward? I mean, I know you're still thinking about it and exploring it, but since it's on your mind, I'm curious, have you thought about ways to turn that into a narrative?
Yeah, I've definitely got some ideas how to do some fiction stuff for sure, which I'm not going to tell you about completely because then you'll just steal it. But the key thing, and I think I talk about this in my recent blog post about 360, because I've been meaning to do a blog post about 360 for ages, and I have so many ideas for blog posts. It takes me forever to get around to doing them, and then forever to write them, because they're never simple. They're always convoluted.
Yeah.
And I explain a little bit about what you need to do when you're thinking about making a 360 video. You need to tell the viewer where to look. That's the most important thing. Whether you do that with audio or whether you do that with something moving within a frame. So if you're doing something with a presenter for like a documentary, having that presenter move, the camera stays static, but the presenter moves, which makes it drives the viewer to follow them, to see where they're going, rather than it's cool to put on the VR goggles and just randomly have a look around and go, this is so cool, but it becomes boring unless you know what to look at. It's a little bit like in a way, like the open-ended video games, the sort of Grand Theft Autos with these open worlds, which are so fun and fantastic. Then after a while, you're like, I'm just going to follow the story now because I'm a bit bored of just driving around and running over people. I actually want to be part of something which is going to keep my interest. And that's basically what this is. So in a documentary, if you have a presenter or a character, have them direct the viewer where to look. It'll be the same if you're doing a fiction narrative. The camera's static in one place. You then have the characters move or talk so that the audio drives them and the character's movement drives them to where they need to look. And I think it can be a really fun way of experimenting with your storytelling and something different away from the norm. Because what we're normally used to doing is creating sequences and shot angles. And that's going to be what's going to keep the interest with the story. But with 360 video, you've got one shot. I mean, you can change it around, but you're not going to edit to keep cutting different shots. You're going to be in one location for maybe 2 minutes or so, who knows? And it's almost like a stage play.
Yeah.
I think that's almost how you need to look at it. The camera's the audience, and you have to create the movement around that 360 sphere that's going to make people look around. I think theatre is probably the best analogy I can think of.
That's a great analogy. And what are your thoughts on moving the camera within 360 space? Moving the camera?
Yes, it's very good timing, because just like this morning, I think I took delivery of a 360 gimbal from Lampart. And it's not an expensive gimbal. It's designed for the Samsung Gear, and I think the Kodak will go on it as well. It's about $300 or so, which is about £9,000 with our exchange rate. Hell, that's going on at the moment. It used to be great. Everything used to be. I used to look forward to going to the States so I could buy loads of gear, because it was so much cheaper. Now it's like, no, can't afford it. Can't afford anything. But so having this gimbal, I've got to think about, well, how do I use it? How do I use it and not disorientate the viewer? Because the movement of the camera will disorientate the viewer. I've had the camera moving in some tests on I've got a whole VR or 360, channel on YouTube, Philip Bloom 360, confusingly titled. And I've got loads of little tests and stuff, so I put it on cars and other things, and that works fine. So I think the movement needs to be very linear, and it can't be too distracting. I think the gimbal could work well, but the problem you're going to have with the gimbal is the operator is going to be in shot. And that's a problem, because you don't really want to have an operator in shot, especially as you're going to lose part of their hands as they're holding it. So it's finding ways to place the camera. I mean, I've messed around with putting gimbals on 360 cameras on drones, but I haven't shot any video yet with them. And that would be interesting as well, but obviously not necessarily for a storytelling device. So whilst I have this gimbal for a 360 camera. I still haven't figured out how I would actually use it. That's the thing. I don't know. The only thing I could potentially do, it's almost like there would have to be on some sort of like small tripod stand, something that would still disappear. But if you had it on that gimbal, and that gimbal could be moved around, like, can you imagine it was a dinner party and the camera's on a tray to start with in a kitchen, and then stuff gets put on the tray, and then the tray's picked up and taken into the dining room and put down. You could almost, that makes the camera move and it stays nice and static because it's on the gimbal, would look really nice. But other than that, it's one of these head scratching things. I think until I start messing around with it, I'll figure it out. But the biggest issue with shooting 360 video is to try and hide the operator.
Yeah.
It's if it's locked down, it's easy enough. And it's always quite fun when you watch 360 video, it's spot the operator. You do it with drones. You're like, where's the guy flying the drone? Looking for it in the shots, because they're always there. You just have to look for them.
Yeah.
But with 360, it's generally the person who's got their back to you. Is trying to hide behind a tree or whatever, just trying to not be in shot.
Yes.
Wearing sunglasses, not just looking vaguely in a different distance. That's probably them there.
I want to talk about drones for a few minutes. You've been really a great supporter of drone videography for a very long time, and you have a recent post here about the DJI Mavic Pro, which looks really quite amazing. Curious on your thoughts, certainly of that product, and then just drone videography as a whole, because this is one of those things that really has become pretty much a mainstay for a lot of production companies now.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2.5 years since I got my first drone, and I think it was February 2014, and I didn't really know what to expect from it. It was a gadget for me and nothing more, and I sort of saw that there were gimbals for GoPros, and I thought, oh, maybe this could be good.
Yeah,
may stabilize the image a little bit. So, after losing my first drone in the Atlantic, as everybody will do, that's one thing about drones. If you could think about buying the Mavic Pro as your first drone, it's not necessarily just not a cheap drone. It's $1,000. If you can afford to lose it, then go for it. If it's saving up all your money, or maxing out your credit card, don't buy this to learn on. Buy something cheap, because I guarantee you'll crash it, you'll break it, you'll lose it. DJI do have this this plan which will repair the drone. One thing it won't do though is if you lose it into the water or something, where you can't retrieve it, tough luck, that's it, it's gone. And getting insurance for drones is really difficult. Like in England, the only way you can get insurance for drones is if you're licensed.
Yeah.
So you can't have it. You cannot insure your drone as just a hobbyist. There's no way. It's not covered. You look at insurances on home insurance, your content insurance, and it says drones not covered.
Yeah.
Even if you've got gear, just my normal gear insurance policy does not cover my drones. I have to have a separate policy, and you're going to get that policy if you've taken the course and you're now if you're licensed.
Wow.
So that's the thing you've got to be really careful of.
And I can only imagine the restrictions getting more and more as time goes on, because more people are buying these things, and it seems like people are going to have to get those qualifications to really fly them at all soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it could go in two different ways. So we've recently had Sweden completely ban them this week. Completely.
Oh wow, I didn't know
ban
that.
them for everybody, professionals and amateurs. Any drone, you can fly a drone, but not with a camera. So you have to physically have a drone without a camera. If you've got a camera, it's called surveillance, and it's banned because of that.
Huh.
So that could take off more in other countries, or it could go the other way, where we're starting to see countries like Australia, and I think there's talk about it potentially coming here in the UK, is if you have a drone under, I think it's 4 kilos, you don't need any qualification to fly it commercially. Which would cover your Phantoms and your Mavics. It would even cover an Inspire 1, believe it or not, at 4 kilograms, which is surprising. But you're still not get insurance for that, though.
Yeah.
You'd be able to fly commercially, but unless the insurance policies change. I mean, I would say anybody who actually is an underwriter for drones, it would be crazy, because surely that's something that people must have a claim on all the time. When you get car insurance, you don't expect to crash it frequently, do you? You hopefully never do. But with a drone, even experienced people will have accidents, because it does happen. And therefore you have to claim insurance a fair amount. But if you don't have any insurance, it goes back to get a cheap drone to start with. And then when you've got some skills, then look at something more expensive. Because the problem is they've become really clever, these drones. So they have lots of autonomous modes, which are fine in ideal circumstances, perfect ideal circumstances. But you can't rely on these things. We have sensors on the Maverick and the Phantom 4, and it's only on the front. So if you've got your drone set to autonomously circle you, and whilst you're skateboarding or on a bike, that's great until it hits a tree, because it can't see it, because it's circling. It's not actually using the front sensors. There's loads of things which can go wrong. I recommend personally, it's manual control is the only way to do it. I don't recommend anybody should be filming themselves and flying the drone at the same time autonomously. I think first off, it's not actually legal to do that. You're supposed to always have your eyes on the drone, but the features are there and they're going to be used. So technology is so good, it makes it seem really easy. But when things go wrong, that's when you need to know what you're doing.
What are your thoughts on the DJI Mavic Pro? I mean, I know it's new. People have been really liking it for its size. You have a great blog post about it as well that people should and could read up on, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But just real quickly, for a minute or so, what are your thoughts on that particular one, having flown so many others?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible drone, to be honest with you. It's incredible fun to fly, because it's so small and it's so stable, and it has this amazing mode called tripod mode, which slows everything down and gives you really fine control. So for cinematic dolly shots and jib shots, it's incredible. I took it through some woods, and I was going past trees and branches which were like a centimeter away from the blades. I had that fine control over it. It was incredible.
Wow.
So I love it. I just wish that they'd improve the bit rate. It's too compressed, and so it does struggle somewhat. When you've got a small sensor and you have high compression, it's not a great combination. And with the 8-bit codec, it needs to be a much higher bit rates. But other than that, it's the most fun, exciting drone I've ever used. I have an Inspire 1 Pro with raw recording, which gives me beautiful recording. It's a big drone. It's not big compared to some of them, but I have to really think about, do I want to bring this with me? And it takes time to set up, and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas this, it goes into a section of a messenger bag. And that's what I love about it. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, you have a great picture of that on your post as well. It's incredible how small this thing. You really can't even tell by watching a video of it. You have to see it in context within your bag, and I think that's really helpful to see the size of it. It's insane.
Yeah. And also in that tripod mode, it does seem to be quieter, and which is a good thing, because the noise is god awful, and to have this quieter drone is great. Really, it makes it, and we're not get to the point where we can do anything with audio yet, but it's nice not to have this really disturbing noise which upsets everybody.
You are listening to the PremiumBeat.com Song of the Week. PremiumBeat.com is where to go for all of your royalty-free music and sound effects. They have a great website where you can access their collection of thousands of royalty-free tracks for as low as $49 each. This one is called Warm Thoughts by the group Chill Study, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Now, what I love most about PremiumBeat.com is that when you get a song, you don't just get the one track. You get different cut downs, a 10-second, a 15-second, a 30-second. You get loop packages, so you have incredible control and you can customize the songs as you wish in your timelines. Quality, and control and customization. It's everything you want in stock music, and Premium Beat has it all. PremiumBeat.com. All right, let's take a minute and talk about Kessler. The Kessler Shutter Dolly is the latest innovation in camera dollies and finally provides filmmakers with the performance and versatility dollies in its class have always lacked until now. The Shutter Dolly utilizes standard speed rails and can be operated manually or in conjunction with Kessler's motion control solutions, CineDrive and Second Shooter Plus. For more information, visit KesslerCrane.com. Now, I know a lot of guys are using this out in the field right now, and it looks amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on it, but you can get a sneak peek at what it's all about at Kessler. Well, it's not even a sneak peek because it's out there, but check it out, KesslerCrane.com. Go to the Kessler Shutter Dolly, and you can see how people are using this thing. It looks incredible. And lastly, Shutterstock.com. I love Shutterstock.com. In fact, just yesterday, I was going through looking for some stock footage. And the thing is, you spend so much time and money to make sure that your footage looks the best that it can. And when you need to supplement with stock footage, you want to make sure that it is of the same quality or better than what you already have. And that's what Shutterstock.com is going to provide to you. They have nearly 3 million royalty-free video clips. Many of them are in 4K, which is great. But they've got great pricing, and you can buy video packs. So you can pay up front for a collection of downloads and enjoy a significant savings. So like, if you're going to buy 25 individual HD videos, that's fine, and that's great. But you can buy the 25 HD pack, and you end up saving $250. So they give you these great opportunities. Aside from having great prices to begin with, they give you a great opportunity to save by sort of buying these packs of downloads. But the most important thing is that there's tons of great quality there, and you don't have to worry about being overwhelmed by how many clips there are because they already have great collections curated for you. Personally, I love the Director's Choice collections, but I strongly encourage you to check out the site because you'll probably find a collection that's exactly what you're looking for, and you don't have to worry about sifting through millions of clips. It's all put together there for you. So Shutterstock.com is where to go. I use it all the time, and I love those guys. Shutterstock.com. All right, it's time to move on to the remaining portion of our great interview with Philip Bloom. I love one of your most recent posts, 10 plus steps to becoming mega successful in video production and probably winning many awards whilst being super rich. Such a great title, obviously sarcastic, but so many good lessons in here. And I think that this one post seems to be, having followed your career for quite a few years now, this one post seems to really be like the culmination of what you're all about. You focus a lot on things like, it doesn't matter what equipment you're using. It matters the skill level, and just get out there and shoot, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Is there? I guess maybe we can elaborate on a couple of those topics because this, like I said, is a great post for people to read and really follow, and it seems to have been your message for all these years.
Yeah, I mean the title comes from those terrible sort of like marketing email thingies you get where 10 steps to become your own boss and earn six figures type rubbish, which is, they're all just cons. So I call it 10 steps and there's 18 in there. So it's, I mean, that's really, and most of them are, almost all of them are common sense, to be honest with you. And that's what's most important. It's a common sense post. I actually wrote it about 3 years ago, and I keep reposting it. I think I do every year. I repost it so people who are new to my site and haven't read it, or maybe who just need a reminder to read it, because it's exactly the same as it was when I wrote it in its thoughts, and it hopefully will help people who are not just starting in the business but who've been doing it for a while and are feeling a bit sort of like I'm becoming stagnant, because to be doing this as a job is incredibly lucky and privileged, because this is a hobby that you're getting paid for. This is not a proper job. I see people doing proper jobs and I go, God, I'd hate to do that. Stuck in an office or hard physical labor all day. I hate all that. I just want to be creative, and to be paid to be creative is amazing. And so the post is really about things you just need to do to hopefully help get started. and get the work that you want. And also ways just to not fall out of love with this incredibly lucky thing that we're doing. Because when I was at Sky back in my staff days, I saw guys who had been working there 20 years, been shooting for longer, 25 years, 30 years, and really were clocking in and clocking off each day. Absolutely had no interest in cameras, had no interest in filming. And I just never wanted to be that person. I never thought you could do a job that you'd enjoy. My dad hated his job. He came home hating his job every day. And I thought, oh, well, I'll look forward to that when I leave school. I'll have to get married, have kids, and do a job I hate. And I didn't realize you don't have to do a job you hate. And be lucky enough to be doing this. There's things you can do, even if you can't get the work that you want, there's things you can do in your other time to creatively keep you happy, which is important.
You mentioned your father coming home, being, hating his job. Do you feel like your personal experiences like that, become incorporated in the work that you do?
Everything reflects upon everything that all our experiences seep into everyday life and how we do things. And I don't want to be unhappy. I want to be happy. I want to come home and feel like I've done something that I've enjoyed and have, I think it helps you as a person. If you come home miserable, then you're going to be miserable at home, and then you'd be miserable the next day. And it's it's just an endless chain of being miserable. If you're doing, okay, so I think one of the things I talk about in the post is doing jobs, shooting jobs, which you're kind of bored of, or you think perhaps, I say beneath you, but I don't think there's very little which I would say is beneath anybody. Is trying to make the best of it. If you can make the best of something which is mundane or you've done before many times, and still think, I've done something which is, I'm really proud of that, because you got to give not always give, but at least try to give 100% on every single job you do. Your aim is always to give 100%, because if you go into a job saying, I'm not really going to try hard on this, it's a slippery slope to utter misery, because you will end up clocking in and clocking off, going home, going, I had no satisfaction from my job today. Where's a beer and watch TV? What am I doing tomorrow? Nobody wants that. You want to come home and go, that was a fantastic day. Let's have a beer. That's what you want. You want to be celebrating. You want to be happy. You don't want to be commiserating and drowning your sorrows. Nobody wants that.
I love that you mentioned things like you don't need a Red. You don't need an Alexa. Use what you have and make it the best that it can be. That type of stuff I think is really inspiring. And I think you follow through with that, because you test and work with cameras of all different price ranges and availability. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in specs and get caught up in gear and sort of lose a handle of what it's really all about.
Yeah, there's certainly going to be work where you're going to need high-end cameras for certain clients and stuff. You don't want to be turning up doing a commercial for Adidas shooting on, a DJI Osmo, for example.
Yeah.
But it's horses for courses. It's the right tool for the right job. And some of the best work I've seen has been done with low-end gear. And low-end gear these days is incredible. I honestly thought that when these video cameras were coming out with large sensors, that the days of shooting video on stills cameras were over. Far from it. I get more enjoyment out of shooting on something like an A7S2 than I do out of my FS7. I love the size. Even though my FS7 has higher end features, has higher frame rates, and et cetera, I just love that small size. It makes me work faster. I love the image out of it. I just think it's just enormous fun. So the camera is capable of beautiful images. And you don't need to be caught up in like, I must get this new Red because everybody's saying you have to have the Red. Great. If you want to have the Red, that's fine. But it's not going to make you any better at what you do. No camera is going to make you any better. It's not going to change your skill levels. It's going to change the image quality that you're able to produce, but that's not going to means that you're actually better. Your skill level is the same. It's just your image looks better. So you've got to learn on the cheap stuff, learn on gear you can afford. I don't. I've bought an Epic in the past, and I bought an F55, which was also a very big expense, and I sold that about 2 months ago. And I kept my FS7. I have an FS5 as well. They are my main video cameras, and if I need anything else, I rent them. I'm never going to buy a camera that's over $10,000 again. I just don't think there's any point. I think that these are rental things. If you need them, if you've got a lot of work and it makes sense, and the project's going to pay for them as a business investment, potentially. But the lifespan of cameras these days, they're not that long. And I wouldn't really call them investments because they depreciate so much. If you can pay it off quickly, then great. But if it's going to take you 3 years to pay off a camera, I don't think you should be buying it. You should stick with the lower end stuff that you can pay for and then just rent when you need them.
In our last few minutes, I want to talk about your work because, we've talked so much about your blog, and that's certainly what people are interested in as well. But you've done some absolutely beautiful work. I mean, you were director of photography on a season of Wonderlist, shot all over the world. I'm curious from your perspective, what would you say is, maybe your most rewarding project or challenging project, or something that, of all the work you've done, that you'd like to highlight here for us now?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because I've done so much, and I kind of forget what I've done in a way. But shooting the first 2 seasons of Wonderlist, and especially, although I preferred what I got on the second season, the first season was very important because I created this style and this look for the show, a very high end look on a very low budget, and it's something that is continuing with the third season, and I'm very proud of my work on that. I think it's some of the best stuff that I've done. But some of my own personal work is something that I'm incredibly happy with as well. There's loads of I have so many projects that I've done, so many things. I mean, I haven't, in the past few months, I haven't really actually done that many shoots because I put my back out very badly in May on the first episode of the third season of Wonderlist. So I had to stop shooting it. And for 4 months, I've done very little professional shoots. I've done shoots here and there, but nothing on a major scale. And it's given me a chance to sort of experiment with different things, try different aspects, different cameras and different styles of shooting, just do directing as well, which has been, taking your hands off the camera is a bit strange. But I think it's important. It's given me a little bit of perspective as well. Having this break, this forced break, has been one of the best things to happen to me in a sort of strange way. If you can say that having a bad back injury can be a good thing, and that it's given me a chance to take stock of everything and realize, what the situation I'm in, and actually is great to be able to be doing this. And I'm able to, I don't earn as much money as I used to because I'm not working as much, but I am still working. I'm probably happier now than I was 6 months ago because I've had that chance to just take a break because I was just working too much. That's one thing as a freelancer you could be very careful of is working yourself into the ground, because you do that as a staff person. You tend to, it's much easier on you because you have these shift patterns and you have proper days off. But as a freelancer, you can end up working 7 days a week quite easily, and that's bad. And I think you've got to set some, you've got to put some very strong rules on yourself about what you're doing. I have a home office, which is a very bad idea. I would not recommend it, but it's financially makes more sense for me. And as I spend most of my work time anyway abroad, I don't really need an office in London, but for others, I would really recommend it because it gives you a good separation. But if you do have a home office, set yourself a finish time and stick to it. Unless you have deadlines, I have to get this, they need it first thing tomorrow, that's different. But if you're at 7 o'clock and you're still editing, it's maybe it's time to stop and just spend time with the family, see your friends, do something, take your mind off it. You've got to have that separation. It's so important.
It's interesting to me because you had mentioned earlier in the interview that sort of bad news turned into good news, where not going back to Sky TV got you to. I know. See, now every time I say Sky, that's what I think of as Skynet.
We had Stephen Hawking warning about the dangers of artificial intelligence.
Well, I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for it. Apparently, it's on my mind. But no, I mean, like, sort of being removed from that work situation is what sort of laid the groundwork for the Philip Bloom of now, and the blogs and the social media and the work you're doing now. Maybe this back injury is going to kind of change your outlook on things, maybe change the way that you work. I mean, it's interesting to me that you are sort of taking these, what otherwise may be kind of shitty situations, and making them work for you in different ways. And I'm interested in your transition to being a director. You had mentioned that a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. I think it's everything happens for a reason. The good and the bad happens for a reason. And I'm, although my shoots, I'm doing much more shoots again now, so that's going to start it up again. I'm very reluctant. I don't think I'll take up a big TV series again, because I feel like I've kind of done that, and I like my projects to be, I'd be happy doing features and, documentary features. There's still documentaries is my main thing, but I'm now starting to do some more fiction work, which I've dabbled in the past, but I've got 2 fiction projects and I'm now shooting. So it gives me a chance to just refocus and just try different things. And I think it's reinvigorating me creatively these past few months. And I think that's important, because I was starting to feel a little bit stagnating. And I never want that to have that feeling in this job. And having that break has given me that chance to just reinvigorate everything.
So what's next for you?
So, next for me. So I got I got a science fiction film which I've been working on, and we'll be shooting in about 2-3 weeks, which is going to be fun doing something like that. I've got some trips coming up. I still do my teaching workshops every now and then, so I have one of those coming up actually this week. And what am I doing? A few bits and pieces. Lots of stuff is on the bubble right now, and some potential projects, and some which are really exciting. Actually, some things which could be really exciting. What I want to try and do, and I think it's important, if you get this chance to try and do it, is try some different things. It may not be for you, but try some different things. So I am trying different genres, different types of work, and doing more directing as well. So I would never stop using the camera. No way. But it's interesting times.
And I'm sure we can be hearing more about all those things at philipbloom.net, because you tend to write about all the things you work on, and that's why we love you. That's why, right there.
Yeah. On the social media especially, I mean, if the blogs, whilst they only come like maybe three a month, it's not that frequent. My updates on my Facebook and Instagram, there's generally, like on average, maybe 3 a day, sometimes more, sometimes less. So I'm always talking about whether it's new gear, new shoots and stuff. And on Instagram stories, I had fun with an actual shoot they did this week. And it was fun. I actually did the whole shoot. Little snippets here and there. It's now gone. You can never see it again, because that's the whole point of Instagram stories.
Yeah.
But if you were able there to be for 24 hours, it was there and you could be part of it. And I quite enjoyed that. It's quite nice actually knowing that it's going to disappear in a strange way.
I love it.
It actually goes against everything I believe, but in a way, it's not what I want to create stuff that survives and is always out there. But it's something quite freeing about, it'll be gone in 24 hours. It's fine.
I totally agree with you. I didn't jump onto Snapchat, so I just was it sort of passed me by. And I mean, I guess I could very easily just start an account and do it, but I don't really care about it. But Instagram stories I took to, and I love them. It's so great to just have it be gone. And it's just a lot of fun to put it out there and chronicle shoots and stuff. And I'm really liking it. So I'm glad to see you're doing the same thing.
And it's good every now and then, just do something really embarrassing and just leave it out there. It's okay. It'll be gone in 24 hours. Just be embarrassed. I did a sing along in a car. It was one of my first ones. I'm like, maybe I wasn't obviously drunk because I was driving, but I did think, why have I just done this? I did it anyway, and it was out there. But and people were very confused initially, and then it's okay. Then it was gone.
I didn't do it. I swear. You can't go find it somewhere. Prove it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's where to go to find out to see what really is going on in Philip's mind when he loses it in long car rides. Instagram stories. That's where you go. Philip, thank you so much for being on Go Creative Show. I can't thank you enough for spending time with us, and we'll have to have you back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Well, if you haven't heard of Philip Bloom before, you know him now, but I know you've heard of him before. He's been one of those guys, one of those names in the industries that has just done such fantastic work and has been so inspirational to all of us. And I'm so glad that he was on the show. You can check him out at philipbloom.net. Check out his work and also check out his blog. I want to thank our sponsors, Hedge for Mac, Rule Boston Camera, Kessler Crane, Newsshooter.com, Shutterstock, and Premium Beat. Without these guys, the show wouldn't exist. So please support those that support us. I also want to say thank you to Matt Russell from Gain Structure Sound for mixing and mastering and making the show sound so damn good. You can find him at gainstructure.com and on Twitter at gainstructure. And while you're there, tweet us at Go Creative Show. Let us know what you think of the show. You can give us some guest suggestions. A lot of our guests come directly from the Twitter account. And you can also find me there too, at Ben Consoli. So just go to Twitter and tell us how much you love us. Make us feel good. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.